So let's get more of this now from Hanna Lubakova, a journalist and non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council. Hanna, thank you so much for joining us here on Euronews tonight. So what does the jailing of Katarina and Daria mean for the future of freedom of press in Belarus? Or, I mean, is there any?
Well, of course, there is future for both Belarus and independent journalism in Belarus. But today's sentence means obviously that there is a real war that was launched against independent journalism in Belarus. The situation with media freedom has never been easy, has never been optimistic, I would say. But what happened last year is just, terrible. Since last year, there have been nearly 500 cases of detentions of journalists, and many of them were beaten, many of them were tortured. And the sentence of Katarina and Daria only shows that the authorities, the Belarusian regime basically doesn't see any limits. Two young female reporters were arrested for live streaming from a protest, and they were accused of organizing this rally. It's just not clear how it was possible to do, because they were just reporting, about the demonstration.
So have you yourself witnessed any intimidation against journalists? I mean, are you afraid of doing your job?
Well, when I reported from the streets of Minsk in August, I myself had to flee from riot police many times. I had to obviously avoid stun grenades. They were exploding near my car, where I was reporting, where I was working. And basically, I didn't know myself whether I would be detained this evening or I would come back home. We all had this assumption that we have to be prepared, for everything. We had this spare T-shirts in our backpack all the time, because this what we might need in detention. My colleagues were targeted with rubber bullets, with tear gas, and water cannons, whatever. So everything can happen. It's just total lawlessness in the country, and many journalists are just facing horrible conditions. They just cannot work, cannot perform their work freely.
So you're describing a total lawlessness, and I mean, Lukashenko's attacks on the media and protesters, there has been widespread condemnation of it. What else is needed?
Well, only condemnation perhaps is not enough. I would say a lot has been done, but there should be more. There should be more pressure imposed on the Belarusian regime, on Alexander Lukashenko, because that's the only thing that he understands. Otherwise, if this signal wouldn't be sent, there will be more repressions in the country. So when it comes to pressure, all different kind of means can be deployed, from sanctions. These sanctions should be more targeted, should be more well thought, should be more painful. There should be an investigation launched by a coalition of governments, a coalition of states that would investigate police abuse, crimes against peaceful protesters. And at the same time, civil society, media, independent journalists in Belarus, human rights defenders need more support, more assistance, because, only 2 days ago, there were 90 searches performed against, in apartments of human rights defenders and journalists all over the country.
So, I mean, last week, though, Lukashenko held the People's Assembly where he promised constitutional reform. But now we have this jailing of these two Polish journalists who were filming from a balcony from the 14th floor. Do you think the protests will continue, or what do you see sort of going forward?
These were Belarusian journalists working for the Polish TV station, just for the record. But, yes, indeed. I mean, this People's Assembly only showed that Lukashenko is not capable, is not willing to start any dialogue with the society, with his rivals, with people who want changes. At the same time, we see basically that the majority of people want changes, want democratization, want a new and fair elections, and want to change the man at the top. And he obviously doesn't agree with this, right? He just fights with the dissent. I'd say that even before the election, when I traveled across the country and I talked to people before August, I saw that, how many of them want change and that they are just ready for it. The society is mobilized, the society is politicized. And what happened after August, what the whole world basically has seen, these massive demonstrations, people were just showing that they are against Lukashenko all over the country. This just not for now, this has stopped because of these massive repressions, and people are just scared. There are hundreds of criminal cases launched against peaceful protesters, right? At the same time, people keep gathering in their local neighborhoods. They keep protesting. They keep mobilizing, building infrastructure. So this is something that kind of gives hope that there would be a continuation of either protests or any form of dissent in Belarus.
Hanna Lubakova, a journalist and non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council, thank you so much for joining us here on Euronews tonight.